I'll call the meetings to order, and this first we'll call the Henderson City Board of Commissioners to a special call meeting Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Staton.
Here.
Thomas is absent. Commissioner Bowles.
Here.
Commissioner Pruitt is absent. Mayor Austin.
Here. Ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to call our meeting to order as well as part of the joint meeting. Roll call, please. I was about to say Tammy, but that's incorrect, Barb. Barb, go ahead.
Commissioner Sykes.
Here.
Chairman Shannon.
Here.
And the other commissioners are absent.
Ready to go. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for working with us on this. Thanks for, we're working through all of our utilities, trying to make some sense out of and leveling out the pilot programs, and that's what we'll be doing today. And we are very appreciative of the work that Hempel has done as our partner in preparation for this meeting. And General Manager Brad Bickett from Henderson Municipal Power and Light will summarize this presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Austin. So, Brad Bickett, the General Manager with Henderson Municipal Power and Light. With me today, our Chairman, Lynn Shannon, and Commissioner Russell Sykes, and also I have Barbara Mall, who is our Chief Financial Officer. She can make some, let me know if I misstated anything.
Kick you.
Financials. There's a lot of this is about financials. I think that most of all, you have a handout that I brought today. I think maybe Commissioner Bowles, you have, I'll bring the extra. So before we get into the slides of the presentation, I wanted to just make sure everyone had a copy of this handout. It's really just some key points that will guide our discussion as we go through these slides. And with that, I'll get started. But before we get into the presentation, another thing I want to mention is that Hempel has been working on different conservation measures. So one of the things that the bags of items that you see with you are ways that we can reduce electric usage. It includes light bulbs. It includes some ways to seal up windows if you have gaps in doors and that kind of thing. We kicked this bin off last week, and we had real good participation from the residential customers that came by and picked up these kits. So we encourage others that are customers of HMP&L to come by the office and pick up a conservation kit. It's good for the utility, and it's good for customers to be able to save electricity, reduce your electric bill.
I know some of our city entities, like the Housing Authority and Holy Name School and some other businesses or companies have really appreciated that, as we do at the city building and all of our other city facilities that have been somewhat converted for lower energy use. So we appreciate it.
Good to hear.
Help on that.
So I'll start with the first slide. Shows the mission statement of HMP&L, which is to provide the highest quality of service at the lowest possible rate. So everything that we do at the utility is directed towards this mission statement. We work on 20-year plan, just a strategic plan that supports this mission statement. And that's important as we look at any changes we make. So the first point on the key point or the handout is that infrastructure upgrades are necessary to provide the electric service in a reliable and safe manner. So what is infrastructure for us? It's poles, it's transformers, meters. We're going to talk about meters in a minute. Tree trimming. You'll notice when we have storms that we don't have a lot of outages. It's because we've done a lot of tree trimming. We make sure that the encroachments on the lines are all taken back and cleared. We've also, you may have noticed, done work with the street lights, and we're working on security lights, getting those converted over to LED. And again, that's a consumption that reduces the energy usage, and it's a better quality of life. When you go to the store and you look at replacing your lights, fixtures, and bulbs, see that the vast majority of your options today are LED. Not just the incandescents, but the CFLs are outdated technology at this point. So the other thing I want to talk about with infrastructure is that when you look at the electric utility, it is unique among other utilities in that we actually have customers today making the product we sell. We have solar customers. We actually have one large customer that's putting storage so that they can control their demand charge. That's important because we're going to talk with everyone more, not just about advanced metering infrastructure, but also the way that we charge for electricity. We really need to collect our revenue appropriately. The reason I say that is because we want customers to be able to produce electricity and sell it back to us or just offset their usage. And in order to do that, a kilowatt charge must be consistent with what it costs us to purchase and deliver that kilowatt hour. So that's something that we're going to continue to talk more about. You see it with water some and gas too. But for us, it's a little more than just conservation impact. It's actually allowing folks to produce their own power, which they can do today. So I want to make that point, and we'll talk more about that. Talking about infrastructure upgrades, one of the things that there's an initiative that was started by my predecessor, Chris Heimgartner, very good impact to reliability and safety for our downtown, getting those services underground. So what we've done to this point, if you look at the alleyway between Rock House and Rookies, we've done a project there. The block where Worsham Hall is located, we're actually working right now on the area around the Soper Building between 1st and 2nd Streets. And what we have planned to do is a 2-block area that's closer between that Soper block and Green Street. So what I have for you is some pictures to give you before and after. I apologize, we didn't get before pictures on some of these, so I've used what was available from Google Maps. But you'll see here this alleyway, some of you are familiar with this, what used to be these poles. These transformers that are up on these poles are heavy. You can imagine what, that's that much weight at the top of the pole does, in storms compared to just a pole with the conductor of the wire on it. That's before, so this is what it looks like it now. Another picture of the alleyway here, looking from Water Street. You can see these poles with the transformers located up on top. Now looking back towards Water Street, you can see that those are gone. You have bollards here, yellow poles to block anyone from hitting the transformer that's now pad mounted. This is a view looking towards Worsham Hall. You can't see very well because of the trees from this image, but you can see the transformers on the pole and all the primary lines. Now this is what it looks like. You can see Worsham Hall in the background. There's the switch cabinet there, pad mounted. This is another picture. This is looking from 3rd Street towards, there's a Sidewalk Cafe now. This is where the Perch Park is. You can see the wires and the poles. So you're looking at it now, it's a bit hard to see. All that is actually, taken out in the air from above. This is existing in the Soper Alley. This is the sign shop here at the back. This will all be also moved underground, as will this pole with the transformers, and this is looking towards Water Street from the parking lot. So that just gives you kind of an overview, specifically the underground work that's been done. That's something we've been working on with current plans, continue to do that. So I'm going to shift from that and talk about costs. Our costs. And again, like I've mentioned before, when I talk about the utilities costs, we talk about fixed costs and variable costs. It's important, again, like I said, that we look at those in 2 different buckets. So the fixed costs would be our costs for materials, specifically metal prices, impact our business significantly. And when we talk about variable costs, we talk about the cost of our power. And we'll talk more about that. Speaking of the costs that are increasing, we do intend to do what's called a cost of service study beginning of next year. Once we do that, we're gonna come and ask for the rates to be adjusted according to what that study, what those recommendations or results show. Just showing some of the costs that I'm describing. These are actually bid prices from 2021 and then more recently for this year. What you're seeing, TX means transformer, so the majority of a lot of what we buy are transformers and poles, and this shows you that starting from the smallest size pad mount transformer down to, pole mount transformer, down to the largest, this pad mount is 750 kVA. The increase in some cases, more cases than not, is over 100% increase. And not to mention that the lead times are a real big issue for us right now. So it's not just higher prices, it's actually trying to get these materials when we need it. So we're going to shift from what we consider the fixed cost and talk about variable costs. The cost for the kilowatt hours that actually flow to your home or your residence. You all may know that natural gas prices are typically based on what's called the Henry Hub spot, the Henry Hub point. The gold line you see on this graph is a trend over a monthly trend up from March 2019 till January of this year. What I want to show you, and that's in million BTU, so you know, as you can look it up, natural gas prices have been trending quite a bit higher this year, last year even. Natural gas and power prices are correlated, and the reason they are is because what's driving the price of power in the market right now is natural gas fuel generators. When the market operator says we need more power at a peak time, normally right now, natural gas fuel units are making up that marginal cost. So what we've seen is that the cost of wholesale power is following a similar trend to what natural gas has done. So just recently, we went and got bids for new power contracts. We hedge ourselves in the market with power contracts to keep our customers from experiencing volatility that is normal in the market. So you can see, based on this competitive bid process that we went through, we learned that prices in 2021 were significantly higher, and still this way, when compared to the past 2 years, and it's about 50% higher, 50% increase over what we had under our previous energy contracts. The good news for Hempel right now is that the peak energy blocks that we just procured, in total, they don't make up a large amount of the energy that our customers use. It's about 12 to 15% of the total energy. So the increase that we're going to see from the power contracts is not going to result in that much of a difference in our overall power cost to customers. But you may have noticed Hempel has a power cost adjustment, and everything that we do to purchase power goes into that calculation. We pass through any extra cost or any credit to the customers, and I think it's for the 9 months of the current fiscal year, we've credited about $2.5 million back to customers through the power cost adjustment. That's what I'm going to get into more detail here when I talk about what types of revenue Hempel receives. It's important. But the point here is that we're doing everything we can right now to control our future power costs. And one of those things is we're evaluating a potential peaker plant. It looks like it could be a good asset for the city. But back to this screen, we do not control the market, and we don't control the cost of the materials we need to provide service. So let's talk about what happens when these costs increase. Hempel has operating reserves, and we have a target for those reserves of $20 million. That is based on 180 days of 180 days on hand for operating reserve. Days cash on hand. Total current reserves we have right now are approximately $23 million. Of that 23 million though, we have some that are restricted. And what that means is that for some reason, we have to have those committed to for a certain purpose. I'm going to get into the reasons why in a minute. But of the reserves that we have now, we plan to use approximately $8.5 million this fiscal year. That is going to result in a drop in the reserves well below the target that we established at $20 million. So this moves to why do you have reserves? There's various reasons. They could be by a contract requirement, it could be for a bond covenant, or by a resolution, or due to litigation. And so of that, speaking of the litigation, of the reserve, it's about $6 million of that is pending litigation that we have regarding our transmission facilities. So it's important to note that is also subject to refund, depending on the outcome of that litigation. The other reason you want to have reserves is for if there's an emergency.
Take care of that, Sharon. Take care of that.
So the other reason that would be in the event of emergency, we don't have to look very far just to our southern neighbors as to what can happen in the event of a tornado, or we can look at ourselves through the ice storm. We didn't have too bad of an impact through the last ice storm event, but we certainly had a big impact from the 09 ice storm. The important thing here, and I had somebody tell me once, well, you know, there's FEMA money available in this emergency situation. But what's important to know is that it can take 2 years to receive that money. So having reserves is important to handle a storm or any other emergency. The other thing that people don't think about a lot when we talk about reserves is actually getting these power purchase agreements. You know, it's really a great thing that Hempel has been able to secure these power contracts alone, or as a municipal utility. One of the things that the power providers that we call counterparties, they look at Hempel's financials. They look at reserves. They look at credit rating and those types of things. So it's very important for that reason to get better power contracts is to have a strong financial position, and Hempel does today.
Let me mention, Brad, right quick, just for everybody's information. Another energy company located at Henderson, for some reason, that thought term life would never be law on our purchase agreement. Brad's the one that pretty much together and
There was a lot of effort from the team. It was a lot of great group. I mean, this utility is it's a really great asset to this community, and the folks that work there and our board and the consultants that we've been able to partner with have done a great job for us. So certainly want to make sure that it was a group and team effort. Also, kind of related to how we are looked at with power supply contracts, it's also for our participation in the MISO market, the wholesale market. We were looked at very closely during the credit application process with MISO to see what collateral might need to be posted. MISO relies on us to pay our bills, on a periodic basis. So having reserves shows that we have the ability to pay those bills. So it's important to have it for that reason. And then finally, like I said, for the credit rating agency, they specifically look at days cash on hand. And from that, this is actually the Moody's report on Hempel. The second bullet point just says, one of the factors that could lead to a downgrade event or downgrade of the rating would be a decline in adjusted days cash on hand and debt service coverage ratio less than 150 days and 2.5 times respectively on a sustained basis. So again, 150 days, not that much below what our target is of 180 days. Anybody have any questions so far? I'll stop there, pause for a moment.
Good.
So The next point that we're gonna talk about is, it'll be number 3 on the, handout, is that the contribution from Hempel to the city includes both free electricity and cash payments. The important thing to note here is that the power and the cash actually impacts Hempel's customers equally. And that's a little bit different than what we had in the past. When we had a power plant, we paid for so much of that generating capacity at that plant. If we used that next megawatt, it wasn't as costly because we had already paid for the operation of that plant. In this case, where we're at today, any power that's not used by Hempel gets sold in the market. We receive a credit for it. So we talk about marginal cost of the power, every kilowatt hour has equal value. So I just want to look at it when we value power on an entire megawatt across the board basis. This methodology slide came from the American Public Power Association survey published in 2020. It used 2018 data. Henderson Municipal Power Line is a member of the APPA, the American Public Power Association. We actually provided a response to this survey, and the methodology here, where it's highlighted, notes that payment in lieu of tax to transfer to the general fund and the value of services such as the free or reduced cost electricity is included. Just to make sure we understood correctly and that we weren't misinterpreting the methodology that was used, we emailed the APPA. It's a little bit hard to see this, but Barbara just wanted to verify with the APPA that our interpretation was correct, and we received that confirmation that their published number of 5.4% as a median or an average across the surveyed public power utilities did include contributions of electricity. There was also a number in that report, 4%, which actually represented the payment in lieu of tax percentage, the median value or the average. So shifting to the next point, if we talk about a calculation for a pilot or calculation for a payment in lieu of tax, the electric revenue from the utility is really what needs to be the basis for that calculation. And what I've got on this slide is everything that goes into what the electric revenue. It includes all power sales, consumption, power cost adjustment, security lights, and forfeited discounts. The audited revenue, or what's sometimes called operating revenue, it includes what I mentioned earlier as MISO market revenue from block energy credits. So right now, when we receive revenue from MISO, again, that goes into our power cost adjustment calculation, and that flows back to the customers in the form of a credit, or it reduces what normally would be a higher power cost adjustment. We also do the same thing with the transmission revenue. Even though that's now, still subject to litigation, we are including that in the power cost adjustment. The other revenue that's included in that total audit revenue is what Hempel would receive if the city paid for the electricity that is delivered. And the remaining revenue sources would be from fiber, scrap metal, rent, and other revenue. Next slide here I have is just an example when I describe that we receive revenue from MISO. This is for, like I said, just to illustrate the point. This is for 7 days in February. We just received it this month. We get these every week, one of these every week. And in this case, we received a little over $59,000 back from MISO. Now, bear in mind, we have already bought power through contracts, and then this credit comes because we get to sell what we don't use in the market. So looking at the definition from the APPA for electric operating revenue, it should include only revenue from sales to ultimate customers and the sales for resale. And for Hempel, that's just the electric consumption, power cost adjustment, security lights, and forfeited discounts. And also referenced in that survey I mentioned that was put out in 2020, the result was across the 136 public power utilities that submitted information, 5.4% of electric revenue going back to the local government was the median amount. For us, for Hempel, we, based on looking at fiscal year 2021, the contribution was 5.29%. And you can see the breakdown on this slide between cash and the value or the cost of the provided electric service. So the total amount was a little over 1.9 million. And it's just broken out there. So moving to the next number 6 on the handout here. This basically going to look at what could be a plan to increase that percentage from 5.29 based on fiscal year 2021 to 6.5%, and use electric revenue going forward at that amount. If we look at, again, the last full year we have available is 2021, that would result in an increase of approximately $3 per meter per month to make the change, to go from 5.29 to 6.5. And 6.5 is a reasonable amount. If you look at this is a graph that also comes from that survey. You're seeing different regions, the median contribution by region. ESC is East, South, Central, which includes our area. The median was 6.4. So if we go from 5.29 to 6.5, that would be in line with the median amount. So if we looked at making this change and we looked at doing a 3-year phase-in plan, what we could do or suggest would be a CPI increase in year 1, which would basically help us get closer to covering our costs for this first year. And when we do our cost of service study, it'll be in 2023, there may not be as big a change necessary at that time. But then it's also going to include a $2 monthly charge increase in year 1, a $2 increase in year 2, and a following $2 increase to the monthly charge in year 3. The reason that we're looking at a $2 monthly increase is because, again, we really need to be working on getting that monthly charge up so that when folks do solar and distributed generation, we're not subsidizing them with the other customers that are on the rates, still include fixed costs being included in the variable portion. So just with this example, looking at the 4.7 CPI is the CPI that is, help me on this part, but this is by an ordinance we have the ability to ask for an increase tied to a CPI from year to year, right?
Yes, and it uses the annual average from 2021 to 2020, and then the last year of labor. 7.
So what we show on this screen would be a typical 1,000 kilowatt hour usage residential customer with the 4.7 plus the $2 meter fee increase. That bill, as an example, would go from $83.90 to $89.85. The following slide is the projection that Barbara put together, basically showing with these assumptions in place, like I said, year 1 via CPI, then the $2 increase. And we would move the contribution to the city to 5.69%. You see the revenue projected here. The highlighted and outlined box is the total contribution to the city. The highlighted line below that would be the cash transfer. So right now, the transfer is 1.2, it's 1,244,724. It would move to almost 1.6 million. Year 2, the cash transfer would go to 1.873. million. And then for a year, the third year, cash transfer would go to just over $2 million. That would get to the 6.5% total contribution. So just looking at that as a plan, at 4.7, like we saw on those projections, it goes from this 1.2 to 2, over 2. If you looked at, just as a reference or as an example, looked at 1.5% CPI increase each year and a $2 increase, then the cash transfer doesn't change a lot. It would be $2,047,000 at the end of the 3-year period. And then if you just do the $2 monthly charge increase over the 3 years, then it would go to just under $1 million in that 3-year period, showing kind of how the CPI increase will affect that calculation. Open it up at this point for any questions or comments, and do my best to answer.
Thank you. It's a very nice presentation. Great job, all of the folks that put that together. A lot of information there. I think that in one of our conversations along the way that the 4.75 is a recommendation of what would be the best case scenario for utility, along with the $2. So,
I'm Maine and second. I've looked through the presentation before, and by the way, y'all did a very good job putting it all together. The numbers made sense. It's very easy to follow. Very easy story to follow. And when you were talking about, you had a slide up, I think, with Atlanta and a couple of other areas. Can you go back to that slide?
Sure.
Okay. Now, my eyesight is not the best. Would you mind explaining just a little bit about what we're looking at here?
Sure. So in the APTA survey that I mentioned, basically, one of the parts of that report, they include this graphic, this bar graph, and the idea is to show the median or average contributions from the electric utility to the local government by region. So what you see in each bar is one region of the United States. And so you've got on the first bar would be the Northeast, second is Atlantic, the third East, North, Central, and like I said, East, South Central would be the region that includes Kentucky and a couple, I think 3 states below us. We're kind of at the top of that region. And then you have West, North Central, West, South Central, the Mountain, Pacific Northwest, and Pacific Southwest regions. And these, again, those percentages represent, and it's on the top of the graph, the median net payment and contribution by public power utilities as a percent of electric operating revenue. And the data comes from 2018, a little bit behind when the report was published.
So the one where it says ESC, that's East, South, Central, and that's us, is that right?
Correct.
So they're at 6.4. Is that, that's based off of total electric operating revenue?
No, it's based off of total electric operating,
Okay.
electric revenue. Yeah, electric operating revenue.
Okay. Do we know, because I was just splitting hairs, but I mean, median and average are 2 different things. Do we know what the average is, or do we just have the median up there?
Just median.
Just median, okay. I was just kind of curious, looking at the median, if we had, you know, if the ones above the median were high and skewed the average higher or lower or whatever it did, but it really didn't matter. To be honest, it's just nitpicky. You guys did a really good job putting together the presentation. I like everything that, I'm pretty agreeable to everything except maybe the front end 4.7. You might need to take a look at that just a little.
Right.
But I think the 222 looks good, and I think some adjustments of variable might be warranted, right off the bat. And the thing that I like the most about it is the last slide that you went to was very illustrative of what we're trying to get to. And that is, if you all, fall on hard times, or if you all have good times, we can, you know, the numbers adjust accordingly. You know, and the same thing here, you know, if we were to do 4.7 up front, then that kind of gives us more money on the back end if that's what we were seeking. You know, but if we give 2% up front, then it's gonna give us less money because it gives you less money. And I think that shared relationship is really what we're trying to accomplish here. So thank you all for putting it together. That's good.
Thanks for your comment.
I don't have anything else. I appreciate your presentation, your thorough explanation.
Just ask, do you think you could, put a word this, a legitimate compromise rate situation? Maybe 2, 2, and 2 on the flat rate and a 2%. This year's, cost projections, you know, from the federal government, which were the 4.7, it's kind of an unusual year, but it's a logical number because we saw what the transformers and poles and wire and all of that's going to cost. But for our customers, if we could, I think if we could do a 2, 2, and 2 on the flat, and then a 2% instead of 4.7%, what would you? And then look at the cost of, you know, next year you're going to have your cost of service study, which is going to give you just a ton of information, and look at year to year on the cost equation there, the federal number.
Sure, we can look at those, do the projections, you know, bring it to the utility commission for any discussion, thoughts, comments, and if you'd like, we could bring that back, I suppose.
If we do a 2, 2, 2, 2, does that leave you in a good spot this year? I mean, are you, you're spending down to 15, obviously gonna, I guess you're gonna make some back to kind of, you know, recoup some of those reserves or whatever, but does that leave you in a healthy enough spot to where if we say we're gonna reevaluate as part of the cost study next year and see if we need to, are you okay? Does that?
Right, yes, we are. Barbara and I have talked about this with the commission. You know, we are in good position right now to get us to a cost of service study at the beginning of 2023. This will help, you know, alleviate, you know, anticipate not require much of a change when we do need a change next year. So I think that's the idea.
The one thing we had to do maybe a decade ago now, I definitely don't want to find us in a position to have to raise them by 22% one time.
Right.
And so I don't want to look at this as whatever we agree to now is good for 3 years and we won't revisit it then. I understand there may be a need next year to come back and take a look at it again. But I'm also, I think I'm in favor of what the mayor said. If you all can do a 2, 2, 2 with a 2%, I would be agreeable to that. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that would work. I guess I get the rate increase this year. But I'm not.
Well, I think all you would need to do, Brad, is just submit another summary sheet. Calculated that.
Right. I mean, if that stretches out, getting to 6, I will. Take longer to get there. I mean, even extra year, I'm understanding.
I think that we can still do the 3-year, let me go to the other slide.
I think the one part that's really, when we set out, and it's so complicated because each utility is different, it's a different animal, you derive the revenues differently. When we set out originally, we thought the cleanest and most equitable way would be 5% of operating revenues across all 3 utilities. Cash, not including in-kind, which I know, I understand in-kind counts, and that gets us up to 6.5% or whatnot. If we do, just to piggyback off Austin's question, if we do the 2.22 and the 2%, does that still get us on a percentage basis on cash to 5%? Is that still where we're at? I'm assuming the numbers are calculated based off of roughly 5 or 5.1 or somewhere around that area.
What we're actually doing, correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, we're actually looking at 6.5% of electric revenue. Then we're taking out the cost of the power that's provided, and the remainder is the cash transfer.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that actually comes out to close to 5.
It did, it was 5 or 5.1, I think, when we
Right,
said
so
earlier, so.
coincidentally,
Yeah.
it works out pretty close.
Yeah, but it's not a fixed dollar amount, it's a percentage basis of
percentage
that
basis.
number, right?
Correct.
Yeah. It accomplishes everything that we wanted to see.
Chairman or Russell, is there anything you want to?
First, we appreciate the opportunity to be here. Brad is always, our general manager, always talks about the team, and he's right about the team, but I also want to say that Brad has done a really excellent job with this presentation. Barb and Brad worked awful hard getting ready for this. I know there's also a team effort with the city, and especially some meetings leading up to this point, so I love, Mr. Mayor and others, how we talk about a partnership, us working together. That's so important in what we do, coming together, listening to what, it's not even a word of a concern. It's how do we help the community, how do we help the utility, how do we help the city? And, I could not be happier with the presentation, the outcome, and where I think we are headed. I'm very comfortable with it. So, thank you.
Yeah, I'll up on that, I agree with Ken. I'm extremely proud of the Barbara and Ed, but also the other people that make it work together, and it's definitely a team. But what I see as a commissioner down there, overthinking that they're continuously going through the look ahead, estimating what's going to happen in year 2, and year 4, and year 6. I'm just excited that we're going in that direction, and I'm pleased with where we are, and I'm extremely pleased with the presentation.
That's fantastic.
I thought it was
Very good job.
and I told you.
Thank you, Russell. Brother, you want anything?
I just appreciate Brad and Barbara's assistance and us working together. And I'd like to acknowledge Robert Gunner, and it's been not a long process in this conversation, but it's been very mutual, and we understand each other's position when it concerns the finances and what the future looks like. And I think, as Brad mentioned, we've been working on the other front of a peaking plant about how to service natural gas needs. And so there are other things that we are working together on, along with your new home that is being constructed, and just want to say thank you for your cooperative spirit.
Likewise to you, thank you.
I think we're finished. I don't think there's any use to carry on. I think we're pretty much in agreement with what we're going to do on both sides. So, any final thoughts from the commission? Okay? I think what we will do is, when we get your proposal in a form that will be presented to the commission, we will recommend the passage of what we talked about.
Thank you.
Anything else final? We're going to get into the meters, but we'll save that for another day, because it's coming up, it'll come up.
It is, and it's, it's kind of part of the plan in terms of distributed generation and being able to see what's going on, and have all the data that we can get through that type of infrastructure.
We're adding new electronic meters at all, at water, gas, and electric. Electric's going to be a little bit different because the business is different. But gas and water will be very similar, and at some point in the future, somebody will be able to sit at a screen and all of those customer charges and what the bill is gonna be. Won't be any meter readers out there, and we'll cut down substantially on the problems of getting those meters.
Now, I'd like to add to that, we do expect very soon, probably in the next month or two, a functional outage management, portal that would, you know, assist customers to be able to see outages that are being experienced,
Yeah,
communicate
and
that back.
and you're gonna put that online too, so
Correct.
the community can see that.
Right.
That'd be that's a good
Yeah,
thing.
we're excited about that.
Yeah, some folks have got that in place, and I know it's very accepted and very popular in the community, so that'd be great. Okay, on the city side, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Russell, do I have a motion? That was a very good motion. I'll do the second. Russell, would you like to vote? Sure. Barb, are you gonna do it, or should we just, I'm gonna say aye. Aye. We stand adjourned.
Okay.